Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the ConquerCast. I'm here with Jason Van Camp today. I am super excited for this. Jason and I met at a couple events. I actually heard him speak at an event called Connect and Conquer about a year ago. I want to talk about one of the topics he shared there because it really had an impact on me. And then we met it back up at a staircase race down in Salt Lake City, running up and down these stairs, and everyone just about puking. But had an awesome opportunity to hear from him again there. Just have kind of kept in contact, but I'm gonna share a little bit of his resume here because it's impressive. He's done a lot, and I really appreciate his service to our country and all that he's done there. But so I mean, even starting with faith, you served a mission as a young man in Russia, which is an incredible experience, I'm sure, that transformed your life. And he wrote a book called Deliberate Discomfort. I would say that as you look at our faith and the missions that young men and young women serve, they're kind of setting themselves up for some deliberate discomfort, whether they know it or not. Mm-hmm. And then graduated from West Point, linebacker for Army.
That's right.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until I was researching that a little bit today. So again, author of Deliberate Discomfort. We've got to read that as a Mountain Ops team. We do a book club here at Mountain Ops, so I'll put that in the lineup That'd for us awesome. To read together. And it'd be fun to have you come speak to the team while we're doing that. So
let's do it.
Let's see. U.S. Green Beret Special Forces Commander. I hope I'm getting all this right.
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close. Maybe we'll go through that. Bronze Star recipient.
Yeah, well, I got a Bronze Star with the V device, so that's with Valor, and then I have 2 additional Bronze Stars.
Okay.
And that's legit. You know, I know a lot of people recently have been exaggerating their resume, but that's true.
Okay.
That's all true.
Let's dive into that. I want to know what that means. And then Executive Director of Warrior Rising and Chairman of Mission 60. And how I met you was through some of your public speaking. So You've got a lot going on, man. You've done a lot. You've got a lot going on and a lot of perspective and experience to share. And so I hope to share that with our audience today. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. This office, this whole facility is fantastic. I've wanted to come up here for a long time, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this together and meet up, and you've got a lot of really cool things happening and ways that you're giving back to the military community, and so I want to dive into that. But you as an individual, kind of your mission in life right now. What are you about? How did you come to that mission? And maybe give us a little bit of a history on that, what you're doing right now.
That's a great question. I think it comes down to knowing yourself. And once you know yourself, really, you turn the volume up, and God is going to support you and help you accomplish whatever it is that you were meant to do on this earth. You know, if you find out you're not successful in something, that's probably not what you were meant to do. Once you find out what you're meant to do, it seems like the whole universe is behind you and like pushing you and helping you succeed, and things doors that were closed before are now open, and so forth. For me, it's about your values, like who are you, and they change from time to time, but generally, I'm a type of person who is determined, someone who is resourceful, someone who is loyal, and someone who cares. You know, that's the type of leader I am. Awesome. In my personal life, with my family, and with my businesses as well. So all those values stem from my experiences in life. You know, in the military, specifically at Ranger School, you really kind of find out who you are, you know, and you have to memorize a creed. You have to repeat it every single day. And the last stanza is, readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. And that really hit home for me. And I tried to be someone like that. I'm going to accomplish the mission no matter what. Even if I'm the last man standing, I'm going to get the job done. And I expect people that work for me to adhere to those same principles as well. Awesome. I want them to be determined. Resourcefulness, I just love people who can get the job done no matter what. You know, I don't like people who are, you know, hey, did you get the job done? Well, I sent an email. Well, I didn't ask you to send an email. I asked you to get it done. You know, well, the store was closed. Well, there's another option here, another way around that you can solve the problem. So I like people that are resourceful, and then loyal. Loyalty is is forged in the dark times. You know, it's easy to be loyal when things are good,
Mm.
you know, but when things are dark and hard and tough and people are quitting, it's easy to quit. The people that are sticking with you, that are there with you, that are fighting that battle with you, man, that means so much to me. And I've always tried to be someone like that as well. And in caring, the last one is, for me, is it's not just saying that you care, it's actually going above and beyond to show people that you care, finding out what makes them tick, buying into them and their vision and their dreams so that they can in turn buy into you and what you're trying to accomplish.
That's amazing. That's incredible. I love that your life is based off of values that lead you to do good and to support others in their desires in life. Does that where does that come from? Is that like your childhood growing up? Is that the mission? Is that the army? Like
that's
a
all
little
religion.
bit of all?
That's all religion, man. That's all religion. So I was converted when I was about 9 years old. Didn't come in here thinking I was going to tell that story, but my grandmother was a member of the LDS faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and none of her family was.
Okay.
Right, it was just her, and she was trying really hard to get everybody to join. And I was in third grade, and my grandmother just showed up at my class one day, and I was like, "Whoa, Grandma's here! What's she doing?" And she was kind of pointing at me, and I got up and left with Grandma, and she got me out of class early. Went to Grandma's house and climbed trees, and she made food for me, and it was awesome. And my grandma was like, "Don't tell your parents." I'm like, "Yeah, done. I'm not gonna tell them anything."
I'll not
right?
tell them anything.
And so she kept picking me up every day after school
Wow.
for like a week, and then one day, you know, her plan sort of came to fruition. There were missionaries there, and they were like, "Hey, we're missionaries for the church, and we want to talk to you about Jesus and religion." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure." You know, and then they taught me the discussions, and committed me to baptism. And so I liked what they had to say, and then I had to tell my parents, and they weren't happy about it. They didn't know I was even getting taken out of school.
Were they upset with
their grandma? What are they going to do to grandma? You know what I mean? Like, gonna yell at grandma? Like, what are they going to do? And so they're like, "Is this what you want to do, Jason?" So I was like, "Yeah." And so I got baptized, and then I started going to. My parents used to drop me off at church, and then eventually they started coming in, and then a few years later they got baptized, and then my brothers and sisters got baptized. So that was kind of how it started for me. And you know, our faith is one of such service, you know, and giving and helping other people. And when you do that, it's counterintuitive. You find yourself and you're happy. Yeah. You know, you find yourself like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to serve other people, help other people. And, you know, and the military is that way as well, in a different lens, meaning you're serving people, you're helping people, you're liberating people. And, you know, that's something that I really bought into and believed in, and I just loved to help people and to serve people.
That's cool. That's awesome. I'm grateful that you shared that. That's I love involving God in these conversations, and especially kind of at what point did you find God? And that, man, at 9 years old at grandma's house, you know, that's pretty cool. I read a post that you had made. I think it was on LinkedIn, and it does apply to being in church as well. And you were talking about being a young man and seeing a young missionary about to leave on his mission, and he stated something about life is easy, something.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that experience as well? Because I think it was a really good lesson that your mom taught you in that moment.
Yeah. We were. That's a great story. So my mother passed away when I was young, and I thought she is brilliant. And we were at church in the back on the basketball court, you know,
in the hard seats.
The hard seats. You know what I mean? And, you know, at church, it's hit or miss with the talk. Sometimes there's one that just knocks out of the park, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And sometimes it's like, all right, go sit down. You know what I mean? Like, your time's up. You know? And
because for those that don't know, my wife was fishing with Eva Shockey in Alaska last week, and she was asking my wife questions, and she's like, "Wait, you don't have like a pastor that just gives all the sermons?" And she's like, "No, it's like we get assigned. The entire congregation gets invited at certain times to share the messages for the day." So that's how it was happening. So exactly you don't always know what you're gonna get. Everyone has different experiences, different levels of.
And God bless everybody. You're up there. You're doing your best. You know what I mean? Some people are not professional speakers, and some people don't know what to say, and some people are just talented at it. And whenever there's a missionary that's kind of going, and there's a missionary that's going somewhere, they give a farewell talk, and they, and then they come home, they have a homecoming talk. And there was a missionary that was up there. He was going to South America somewhere. I don't recall exactly where, but he was going to South America. And I thought he gave a great talk. And at the very end, he said something to the words of, it's easy. All you have to do is obey the Lord and pray, and read your scriptures, and that's all you have to do, and I was like, oh, and I was a young kid. I was like, oh, that's right, like that's it. And I looked over at my mother, and I kind of said to her, that was pretty good, and she kind of shook her head, and she was like, that kid's in for a rude awakening. And I was like, why? And she said, well, life's not easy. Life is hard. And if it isn't hard, you're not living your life the right way. Mm-hmm. And it was just a powerful teaching moment for me at the time, because I was like, wow, that is pretty powerful. Like, whenever you find that life is easy, then you know that it's time to level up, and life should be lived in discomfort, not, in severe discomfort now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you shouldn't be, a masochist or anything like that. You should be constantly pushing yourself and growing so you can become a better person, mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, emotionally, and professionally. Mm.
So that's there. Is that kind of when did you come up with the deliberate discomfort idea? And because it sounds like your mother was teaching you those things.
She was.
Right?
She definitely was. But it wasn't something that I created when I was younger.
Right.
My leadership journey took me from West Point to my mission, back to West Point, to Ranger School, to Special Forces Selection and Qualification course, to combat many times, and all these things that I did in the military. And when I left the military, about 14 years for a medical retirement, I said, what am I going to do with myself? Now what? It's the same question all veterans ask, and we don't do a great job of preparing, or at least at the time we weren't doing a great job of preparing our soldiers and sailors, Marines, airmen, and everything to succeed in the post-military world.
Yeah.
And I started a leadership consulting business. So I got my MBA, and part of that program was to develop a business plan and pitch it. And I said, well, I know a lot about leadership and military, and I love sports, so let me combine, professional sports with leadership and see what I can do. And I got a bunch of my buddies together, Green Berets and Navy SEALs, and a couple of them were actual Medal of Honor recipients. And we did an event we were lucky enough to get the New York Jets as our first client.
Wow.
And then I realized, we need to do more than just tell these war stories. My guys would get up and they would tell their stories, and some of the coaches and players would like, that's great, but how did you do that? And some of the guys would say, well, I don't know, man, I just relied on my training. And I was like, that's a pretty bad answer. We can do better than that. So I brought in scientists and researchers and experts to my team, and they kind of supplemented the stories that my military guys were talking about. And then I started writing for Inc. magazine, and they were asking me to write leadership sort of articles. And one article I wrote about was getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And that got like 20 times as many views as any other article. And I was like, oh, okay, well, there's something here. People like this. People like the getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And so we transitioned the entire business around teaching that, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And we needed a tagline. And so for many months, I was like, what could it be? And the alliteration with deliberate discomfort, I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And so that's how we came up with it.
That's awesome. That's really good. What does deliberate discomfort mean, to you? What does it mean, and then how has that been applied in your life?
Well, it's intentionally, voluntarily, and deliberately putting yourself in difficult situations, choosing to do hard things before hard things choose you. Because hard times are going to come, always. And if you're proactive about it, if you're taking the initiative, it's much better for you than if it just shows up at your doorstep. And we see this in the military too. There's a lot of guys that, didn't quite prepare themselves for certain things because they didn't think that it was going to happen to them. And then when it did happen to them, they weren't prepared for it. And it was really difficult for them to accept. And I always said, hey, choose choose the uncomfortable things, digest the discomfort, prepare yourselves now in training, because when you get to combat, when you're faced with that choice, you've already made that choice in your training. You don't have to make that choice in the moment. And so that's a great principle to learn.
Yeah.
And it can direct your life. Anything that you're doing. I honestly think that that's why we're here on this planet.
Yeah.
We're here to get experience, to learn, to grow, to become better, to help other people. And we can only do that by getting up off the couch, turning off the TV, putting the chips away, and doing something.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, and everybody's different, Everybody's heart is different. Some people will tell you, like Admiral McCraven, make your bed first thing in the morning because it's hard. For some people, that's really hard to do. Well, I was at West Point for 4 years, and we had to make our bed at 5 a.m. every single morning, right? To an impossible standard. It's not hard for me to do. It's a habit now, and it's hard to make your bed when your wife is still sleeping in it. You know what I mean? I've heard some Navy SEALs, friends of mine, that have said, hey, take a cold shower in the morning or every day. Well, I lived in Russia for 2 years, and in the springtime, they turn off the hot water. And so you don't have a choice. Spring, summer, you're taking a cold shower. And you kind of got used to it, and then all of a sudden you kind of like it. And so it's not hard for me. But I got a buddy down in Lehigh. You probably heard of him, James Lawrence, Iron Cowboy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He ran 50 Ironman races in 50 consecutive days in all 50 states, and 100 Ironman races a couple of years later.
He's been on this podcast actually as well.
And I did a few of the 100 with him, 3 of them.
Did you really?
And
wow.
If he was like, Jay, let's go run an Ironman tomorrow, that would be super hard for me to do.
Yeah.
I'd say, dude, give me a couple months, maybe even a year to prepare for this, But for him, it's easy. He can just wake up and do it. But other things are hard for him that are easy for me.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that's hard for you, choose that, make a resolution to see it through to the end.
That's really good. Do you do that if it's hard for you? Is that a weakness, or is it just hard for you and you should learn to live in that? Or yeah, I guess I don't know if that's the right question. Do you just let's go to your mission, for example. Okay. What? Why did you choose to go on a mission? Did you know that would be was it uncomfortable for you, or was it? Was it easy because you've been to West Point? Had you experienced things like?
Yeah. So things are different now. It's almost like our young men and women have a choice to go on a mission, and some of them are just like, I don't want to go. At the time, and you probably were in the same age group, you were expected to go.
Yeah.
Like, you're going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never looked at it like it was an order or I had to do it and I didn't want to do it. I looked forward to it. I was like, this is going to be cool. This is going to be interesting. I'll have a great time doing this. And I got the call to Russia, and that mission no longer exists. And I was pretty excited about it.
What was the mission?
St. Petersburg, Russia.
St. Petersburg. Okay.
Yeah, St. Petersburg, Russia. And I was super excited about it. So I was at West Point at the time, and that was extremely hard for me. That was the worst 4 years of my life. First time away from home. And my mother passed away. And
while you were at West Point, she passed?
She actually passed. She was she was on her way out when I just got to West Point, and then on my mission, she passed away.
Sorry.
It was just it was a rough, and it was because I didn't prepare myself. I just kind of went into West Point cold in a way. I said, I'm just gonna crush it. There's so many things I could have done beforehand to prepare myself, and I didn't. I didn't choose that discomfort, and I wish
was
I
it more physical, or was it mental?
No,
or
the physical stuff was actually pretty easy for me.
Okay.
It was the atmosphere. It was sort of. I'll give you an example. We had to do a 2-mile run test pretty early on. And I don't think I've ever run more than a mile in my whole life, And I used to think like running was like you sprint as fast as you can. It wasn't like pace yourself. Yeah. I'm a football player, you know what I mean? We sprint everywhere we go. I was pretty good at it. And so we ran 2 miles, and I came in with the top group. Like there was like, I guess about 100 of us or so. We took off, and we had to run this course. and I was determined to like do my very, very best. And I came in just a little bit past 12 minutes, and I was like the first guy in my group to come in. And I thought the people there were my instructors. They'd be like, "Wow, look at Van Camp, good job. You know that he's good." I remember coming in, they're like, "That guy came in. That guy sucks. But I hate that guy. F you." Like you're saying all this stuff, and I was like, "I did good." You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a good. This is the fastest I've ever run in my life, and I was the first to come in that group, and they were just like berating me, and that's kind of how it was there.
Wow.
And they're trying to break you down, destroy everything that you've built, and then build you back up is kind of the plan. But it's hard to do that when what you've built was pretty great, and you didn't really want to let go of it. You know what I mean? So that was kind of tough for me. And
How do they, when they so they break you down by just like ripping into you verbally and putting you through the physical stuff?
yeah,
And then how do they build you back up?
oh, they build you back up in the image that they want to build you in. You know, so they have certain, you know, like the ideal military man,
So
kind of
disciplines and
disciplined, and you know, like you would imagine a
Okay.
West Point cadet to look like. And so
Okay.
they try to break you, destroy everything you've built in your life, and then build you back up into that.
So are you saying that someone that came there having had maybe a life that was worse off than you may have done better because they had already been beaten down a little bit more, and you kind of lived a more ideal life?
I think there's some truth to that. I think there's somebody that went there to West, or even to the military. They said, you know what, I know I need to make changes in my life, and I'm here to make those changes. And maybe I for whatever reason, I haven't made those changes yet, and I know I have so much more potential, and this is who I want to be like. These, you know, ideal, you know, avatars of military, you know, the premium military soldier. Those people, I think, embrace it, and they're like, yeah, break me down and help me to build it back up. I was so young at the time, I didn't realize that or think about that or look at it that way. I just thought, you know what, my life is great. You know, and I've succeeded at everything I've tried. My family loves me. The community loves me. My high school coaches and teachers, everybody loved me. Like, I could do no wrong. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
pretty good life. And when you get to West Point, they're like, we're going to take all that away and break you down and give you the opposite and tell you you're no good. You're a piece of crap. You know, everything you've done is bad. Every decision you made is wrong. And I kind of resisted really hard because I didn't want to give up what I built.
Yeah.
And then they build you back up. And, you know, for a lot of guys, what they build is so much better than what they had. And for some guys, what they build is not as good as what they had, or some sort of Frankenstein of,
Interesting.
you know, both. You know, but back to your question earlier about deciding to go to West Point and do all that. My parents really pushed me to go there, and I thought it would be really fun and interesting to go there.
Did they push you because your father was military, or is that something that you had on your mind, you guys had discussed, or?
My mother used to say, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future."
Oh.
And when I was growing up, we grew up in the Washington, D.C., Virginia area, and so there were a lot of military families.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't unusual to join the military. It wasn't unusual to know the rank system and different branches and different, you know, things like that. And so going into the military wasn't unusual.
Okay.
You know, my grandfather served in World War II. He was in the Army Air Corps. My father was technically in Vietnam. Like he volunteered to go to Vietnam. He was sent to Virginia Beach to work on a brand new technology called computers. And he was then sent to France, and then he got into a horrible car accident in France, and that was his career. So he didn't really push me. I didn't really know much about his military career because he didn't really have one.
Gotcha.
But my parents didn't push me into the military. They just liked the idea of me going to West Point, you know, like number one university in the country, and you know, and everything that you can get from there. And I was just so young and dumb. I didn't know the difference. I was like, you know, wherever, you know.
So did you have to to go on a mission? Did you have to finish West Point first and then go on a mission? Do you see a lot of members of our faith doing that?
No, what I walked into, they had what you would do is you would go for 2 years, and then right after your sophomore year, you'd go on your mission. And that was pretty consistent. For me, my coaches said, my football coaches, they were like, we want you to leave early. So after a year and a half, go on your mission. So when you come back, you can be back in time for spring ball and kind of get you back in shape and get you going and then, do that. So I was the first cadet to do that. So I left after a year and a half, went on my mission, then came back in early January, and then my second semester of my sophomore year is where I returned.
Cool. And played again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And so then, like, all that preparation, obviously preparation through the schooling, and they're breaking you down, they're building you up. You go on a mission. The mission could break you down a bit and build you back up in many different ways. You come back, and then you had some time where you were sent overseas were you in combat? Were you like, did you actually take all those things that you had learned, you were broken down, you build up, and now you're finding yourself in like real life situations where you needed that?
Yeah. Well, in the military, there's it isn't just one time they break you down and build you back up. Seems like every course you go to, they try to do the same thing, and then you kind of get used to it, and you kind of understand what they're trying to do, and you don't take it so personally like I did when I first went to West Point. So graduation, from West Point, you become a second lieutenant, and I was an artillery officer at first, and I was assigned to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and this was June 2001. And September 2001 is, obviously the 9/11 attacks in New York and Washington, D.C. And we were in class, and all of a sudden there were some students in class, my peers, that would get up and kind of leave, and it was kind of unusual. And then at the end of every hour, they gave us a short break to utilize the latrine and grab a drink or whatever. And there was a small TV in the hallway in a cafe, and we were all huddled around this TV watching. And somebody said, and I was like, what's going on? Somebody said, there's a plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. And I thought it was just some drunk pilot or something that just made a mistake, and I wasn't thinking much of it. I was like, oh, what an idiot, And we're kind of watching, and I remember, seeing the one tower with smoke, and then I specifically remember seeing the other jet flying right into the tower, and we were all like, whoa. And somebody said, we're at war now, gentlemen, and we knew it was like a terrorist attack. And then we heard things that were happening in the Pentagon in different places, and we're like, the post was locked down, and we realized we were no longer an army that was training, but we were an army that was going to war. And so it changed everything for everybody. And very shortly afterwards, there was a U.S. Army Ranger that came and spoke to us, and he's like, hey guys, things are different now. What you signed up for isn't what reality is now. If you want to be at the tip of the spear, if you want to make a difference, you need to consider volunteering and try not to go to Ranger School. And a bunch of us decided to try out. There was a 6-month tryout period. It was called pre-Ranger physical training, and every morning we had to, just get kicked into the dirt physically, and
broken down again.
Just completely broken down and all that. And there was about 100 of us that started, and 12 of us were selected to go, and 9 of us actually went to Ranger School. And at the end of the day, 3 of us graduated from my class.
Wow.
And I loved it. We started in January at Ranger School, and if you're lucky and you go all the way through, it's about 61 days. So I finished up in March, and it just kind of changed my life in a very positive way. I really loved the experience. Learned there's no better leadership school in the world, and you're doing it with your buddies, and you're starving. You get very little sleep. You're walking up mountains all day long with huge rucksacks on your back. You're learning tactics. You're learning how to lead people when they're tired and hungry, and miserable and the whole thing. And from there, I went to Korea for my first duty station, so I was there for a year. I missed Afghanistan, but then the invasion of Iraq occurred, and so I went with the initial invasion of Iraq. And while I was there, get a chance to meet a lot of different types of people, and one of the youths that were the Green Berets, and they showed up with ragtag uniforms. They had the coolest gear. They had the best weapons. Some of them had like beards, and some of the NCOs were trying to talk to them, and they were just like, whatever, man. And
oh, really?
I was kind of like, these guys are awesome. How do we become like those guys? And we befriended them, and they were like, hey, if you want to go this route, here's what you need to do. And so when we got back from this deployment, which lasted, I think it was about 9 months, this deployment, initial invasion.
Are you single at this time? Do you have family? Or you?
I didn't get married till I was 38, so
Okay.
I was single my entire
During
military
that. Okay.
career,
Gotcha.
which is good and bad,
Yeah. That would be difficult to be away from wife and kids.
It would be, and there were a lot of guys that really struggled and had a hard time, and I really felt for them, and a lot of divorces and a lot of things like that. Got back, and I submitted my packet and got picked up to go to Special Forces selection. And it was about, I guess, 3 weeks or a month long, and I really enjoyed that. And that was a much different experience because before that, the military training that I went through was always people in your face, yelling, very aggressive, very vocal. And Special Forces training was the complete opposite. Nobody was in your face. Nobody yelled at you. Nobody told you were doing poorly or you were doing well. They just looked at you, and then they just wrote something down in their notebook or whatever.
While you're doing whatever activity they... Yeah. And it's always physical with an element of mental, or what?
Some of it was mental. So there was the physical activities for selection. I remember, you do the PT test and the push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and running and all that, and 5-mile run test and all that. But there were times when they'd say, all right, this is the uniform that you wear. And maybe it'd be like a T-shirt and shorts and running shoes, and this is where you need to show up. And if you didn't show up, like they're starting at that time. If you're not there on time, then like you missed out.
So those are the details they're watching for.
And then they say, all right, everything you do and everything you do and don't do are going to be graded. Do your best. We'll tell you when to stop. And then you just kind of go. And you're like, am I running 2 miles or 8 miles or 16 miles? They don't tell you. You just run until they tell you to stop. And so you just do your best. And then at some point they're like, okay, stop. They write your time down, and then they walk away. They don't say good job or you're an idiot or anything. And I was like, this is kind of awesome. And then there's things like the STAR land navigation course. And so they teach you how to do land navigation and compass and map sort of thing, pace count. And then you have three or 4 points. I think it was 3, maybe it was 4. Anyway, it lasts all night. Sometimes it's 12 to 16 hours for people. And you have to go from one point to the next and record. There's like a little stamp you get, and you have to stamp it. And you have to be tactical when you do it. So you can't walk on roads. You can't be seen, that sort of thing. And that was a lot of fun.
Are they watching to see if they can
watching,
catch you?
Yeah, they're trying to put you in a position. Like there was like a lake, and there was a road through the lake, right? And it was kind of like the only way you can get up across the lake. And it was in the middle of the night. It was in January. And I was like, man, my point's right over there. And you're like, should I risk it and go on this road? I know they're trying to set me up for failure, because if they, or should I jump in the freezing cold lake with my ruck on and swim across the lake? You know what I mean? And so that was a decision. Like, and I was like, I don't know if somebody's up there or not, but I don't want to risk it. So I jumped in the lake and swam across.
Wow. That's awesome.
Things like that, right? For guys. And then you see other guys that you're not supposed to communicate with in the land nav course, and some guys are just really struggling and stressed out, and they're like, can't find my points, and there's some guys that are just like,
and you can't help each other.
You're not supposed to. You can give them some encouragement and be like, it's up there, or hey, you're good, man, or whatever, but you're not supposed to. And And there's some guys when you're like on your second point, they're like, yeah, I've been done for like 3 hours, and it's like, good for you, man. You know. And so those are some of the things you do. There's like a mental evaluation as well. It was just a great time. And then after that, if you get picked up, you go through the entire qualification course, and that's
How many do they pick up from that? Like, I know the Rangers, you said there's 100 guys that start, and there's 6 that get.
well, just for us, for that, for the artillery unit that I was with at the time, we just graduated 3. But if you're in an infantry unit, that number is a lot higher because you're expected to be a Ranger qualified.
Okay.
You know, and so if you don't, it's sort of like your career's over in a way. Like you really need to have that Ranger tab. For SF selection, it's kind of hard to.
What's FS?
Oh, SF, so Special Forces.
Special
Sorry.
Forces, okay. Yep.
You'd have to fact check me on the percentages of, I would maybe 20, about 25% probably, I would say, graduate that start. Maybe it's lower than that.
Okay.
You'd have to look at those numbers. I don't want to give you false information there. But it's about 2 years from start to finish, and it was I just really enjoyed it. It was a great time.
Feels like your life you've been on a mission, whether it's a spiritual or a physical or for freedom or whatever it is. It sounds like you've allowed each step of the way to kind of evolve. You didn't have this course picked out, did you, from the beginning of I'm going to be? It sounds like when the opportunity arises, you were prepared to say, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. I guess there are a lot of people. Well, I remember this from high school. I remember I was in my history class my junior year, and my teacher was like, well, you guys got to start thinking about your future. Where are you guys going next year? And I remember thinking, like, hell if I know. I have no idea where I'm going next year. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. Who knows that? And everybody in the class was like, they raised their hand, and they were like, I'm going to Ohio State. I'm going to study mechanical engineering. I'm going to Virginia Tech. I'm going to study, environmental, studies. I'm going to go to UVA. I'm going to learn life sciences. And everybody had and I was like shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like, you guys think about this? Like, I had no idea. And so that's kind of how I lived my life. I guess that's just who I am. Is I am an opportunist. I look for opportunities to do things that are interesting and fun to me. I didn't have a plan, a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. This is where I'm going to be. I wonder how my life would have turned out if I had done that. And that's an interesting question.
Huh. No, it's really cool to see how it all played out. But the things that you end up doing, they're successful, and it takes someone with discipline and grit and ability to actually do those things. So it wasn't like you were some slouch, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's not easy to get into West Point, right?
Oh, it's very difficult. Yeah.
And so even though you maybe didn't know exactly, like, you had to still be succeeding in your efforts, although you didn't know exactly where you were headed.
We talk a lot about, in this day and age, we talk a lot about being present, being in the moment. Yeah. That's something that I've always been good at, just like being in the moment, like not really looking back on the past and regretting things, or not looking at the future and, thinking, daydreaming, or this is where I'm going to be, this is what I want to do. I've always just kind of enjoyed the moment for what it is.
How does somebody do that? Because I feel like that's one of the biggest struggles of our day and age.
Yeah.
There's people that are depressed looking back on there's people that are anxious. I'm probably more on the anxious side, like, what's the future hold,
Yeah.
But my desire is to live in the moment. Like, how is that a natural gift that you have, or is that something you've had to work towards? Is there any counsel you'd give to those listening? Because I feel like that's one of the number one ways to conquer more in life, is to be where your feet are.
Be where your feet are. That's a great line. I'm naturally gifted at that, and I'm not gifted at other things now, but that's something I'm good at, is just to be in the moment and be present, be there. And it helps with family life as well, because being a dad, being deployed, and I wasn't a father when I was deployed, but I know my buddies that were deployed, and they missed out on all this stuff with their kids. And then they come home and they do their very best to make up for it. and to really be present and to give it their all. And I know guys that have never served in the military that are home all the time, but they're not really home all the time. They're not present. They're thinking about their jobs, or they're doing other things, or they're behind the TV set, or they're on their phone or whatever, and they're just not there. And I look at that, I'm like, man, like you're wasting such an opportunity. You could be present right now doing something with your kids. And I think honestly, I'm too present with my kids at times, because they're like, Dad, go away. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do my own thing right now. And it's like, okay.
How old are your kids?
They're 8 and 6.
8 and 6.
And so there's a time when it's like, all right, Daddy needs to lay off and let them kind of do their own thing.
It gets a little harder when they become teenagers too, and they really like, hey, Dad, just give us a little bit of time.
I don't want to hear about that yet.
Soak up all this time you can. I mean,
But being present, I think, putting down the phone, putting down the TV, and then taking a moment to take a deep breath. And I found a lot of peace and tranquility with breathing exercises,
really?
and the mindfulness type stuff. And it seems so out there and wonky. My buddy, I've heard about it, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And a buddy of mine who's a Navy SEAL, he was like, dude, I tried it, Jay, and it really works. Let me show you how to do it. And because he has such credibility in my mind and in my eyes. And I listened to him, and I started doing it. And the first week or so, I was like, this is so dumb. And then afterwards, about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, I was like, hold on a second. I feel different. I feel better. And I'm like, this actually works.
Wow. And
so I think that would help.
What is it is there an app or something that you use that it walks you through the exercise, or is there a tool with it?
For our program, my buddy John McCaskill, who's a Navy SEAL, he's created a system of breathing exercises for us, and it goes week by week. And so the first week there's some pretty easy breathing exercises. It takes about 2 minutes or so, 5 2-minute exercises, and then the last week, the highest level is like 40 minutes of breathing. And I don't know who has 40 minutes every day to breathe, you know what I mean? But we've done that for weeks at a time, and man, it just puts you in a different mind state. It's really
so your program, is that a program that's accessible that people can join, or is it something that's kind of more exclusive? Or
we're it's a free program. It's called the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge.
Okay.
It's available every January to March of every year, and so it's we use it as a New Year's resolution. So anybody who wants to do it, it's a 60-day challenge, and we provide an online platform for people to work out twice a day. We give you the workout exercises, a nutrition program, breathing exercises, professional videos that you can watch that'll kind of help you in your job, and different things that we offer. And it's a free thing, and we're going to revamp it because we've had the same program for five years now, so we're going to do something different.
We'll have to adopt the book, and then that within our team culture here. That would be an incredible one to do. So, no, that's awesome, man. So, getting deployed, what was that like overseas and in combat, and what does a Bronze Star of Valor mean? A lot of this is new language for me.
That's good. I'm happy to explain. So my first time in combat was the initial invasion of Iraq, and I remember calling my dad because I didn't know what to expect. I was super nervous. I was like, we're going to war, man, And I was hoping to get some solid advice from my dad, or just some comforting words or something. And I called him up. I'm like, well, I'm about to get on the plane, Pop. And he's like, all right, keep your head down.
That was it. True to form with him, is that kind of his?
Form, yeah, absolutely true to form with my dad. And I was kind of like, thanks, Pop. And he kind of made it seem as though like, stop being so dramatic. He didn't say those words, but it was sort of like, you're one of many. You go over there, do your thing. You've been trained. You know what to do, and whatever happens, sort of thing. And so you kind of go over there, and you're on edge. I mean, you're like, what's going on. And then, as with anything, after a few weeks, you kind of get used to it. And
Acclimate to.
you're like, all right, I can handle this. I know what I'm doing. And then eventually get pretty good at it. You become an expert at it. And the war that we experienced wasn't, me versus you fighting. I'm looking in your eyes and I'm punching you, you're punching me, I'm shooting at you, you're shooting at me. It was asymmetric war. It was a lot of ambushes, and I improvised explosive devices, and it was difficult because every time you left the wire, right, you didn't know what to expect. And my vehicles got hit with IEDs many times, and we were lucky. I was lucky, that is. My team at times weren't as lucky. The first deployment was a bit odd because they were firing, the Iraqi army, the Republican Guard, they were firing missiles at us, and there was threat of chemical warfare, and then you kind of cross from Kuwait into Iraq, and generally there were some skirmishes, but they mainly threw down their weapons and ran away. And we were rolling in Humvees without doors. You know what I mean? It was different.
Interesting.
The second deployment, that was the roughest deployment. The enemy had splintered into separate terrorist organizations. They knew how to attack us. They knew what to do, what not to do. And so my second day there, this is an interesting story. So I convinced my boss to let us go to combat, even though I was a brand new officer, and we were going to go to this location that hadn't seen coalition forces in a couple of years. So it was an austere environment, and there wasn't really any presence of any of the friendly forces. And so we were staging out of a sister detachments, another kind of a friendly, somebody else in my company who was stationed in this one location. We were with them as we were kind of scouting the area. And on the first day, I left with 3 Humvees. We scouted this area. We're like, okay, this is where we want to be. We came back. The second day I left, kind of doing the same thing, scouting the same area. And my boss called me on the radio. He's like, I need you to turn around and come back. I'm flying into your location later today, and we need to talk. I was like, Roger. So I turned around. All the vehicles went back, and I got 2 of my team members to sort of replace me. And there was Zach and Scott. So Scott was in the turret, and Zach was in the passenger side, front passenger side of the Humvee that we were in. And so they left, and I took off my body armor, put my weapon down, took my helmet off, and I was walking into the compound in which they had a TOC, a Tactical Operations Center, radios, that sort of thing. And I heard on the radio, troops in contact, troops in contact, troops in contact. And you never want to hear that, and it could be anybody, and it could be somebody you know. And so I just sort of nonchalantly asked the radio operator, hey, who's in contact? And he kind of put down the earphones, and he was like, your guys are in contact. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you guys are in a firefight. I was like, they left like 5-10 minutes ago. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, sir. They're fighting. And so I threw my stuff back on. I got a couple guys. We got in some vehicles, and we got out there as soon as we could. And the vehicle that I was just in, and an IED, an improvised explosive device, was placed in a culvert underneath the road, and it was detonated right on my vehicle. Exploded. The Humvee that I was just in lifted up off the ground, and then just did a roll, and rolled about 30 feet down the road.
Wow.
The guy that was in the turret, Scott, he was ejected. When the bomb blew up, he was in the turret, ejected him, and he was like 100 feet down the road. It was crazy how far he flew. And he broke his back. He was delirious, but he was conscious, and he was trying to put his weapon together to fight, because his weapon had snapped in 2. You can't really do that, but he thought he could, and he was doing his best.
Wow.
And Zach, who had just replaced me, in the front passenger side. He put both of his arms out when the explosion occurred to brace himself, and the explosion was so catastrophic that it snapped both of his forearms back, and so it was complete fracture, and no, he couldn't move his hands, and they were just kind of flopping there. The driver, he wasn't on my team, but he lost his leg, and then the interpreter in the back, he died. And so we got there, and we were getting our guys on a medevac helicopter and trying to figure out what was going on, and I went to scout out the area, and I saw this copper wire leading out from underneath the road and this culvert into the desert behind a berm. And I was like, that's where the bomb was initiated. And I saw motorcycle tracks leading off into the desert. Like, okay. And then I got back in my Humvee and, checking on my guys and seeing how they were doing on the helicopter and everything. And it turns out they were both going to be okay. They were going to survive, and they're fine now, And I was talking to my boss, doing the battle damage assessment and reporting all this information. And then at the end of it, I was like, sir, here I'm heading back to base. What time are you coming in? And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, sir, you called me earlier, said you were coming in, and I had to turn around, and you're flying in, and you need to talk to me. He's like, Jason, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, sir, you told me, that's why I turned around. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. And so I was like, wow, man, that was pretty impactful. It was like a higher, something bigger than me got me to turn around, because right where I turned around was where the IED went off. And so, like I talked about earlier, when you find your purpose, the universe, God sort of helps you out to accomplish that. And there are times when you have somebody, the universe or God or a guardian angel, sort of preventing you from certain things from happening.
Wow. That's an incredible story. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
How do you, has God always played a role in your life that way? Have you always kind of recognized him even in combat? Has he been there speaking to you along the way, and whether you knew it was him or not? Or
well, I don't want anyone to think I'm a perfect angel.
Right.
Or I've only made good decisions my whole life. I haven't made a lot of mistakes and fallen off the path, and but I've always tried my best, and I've always tried to help people, and I've never felt, and this is different for everybody, but I've in all honesty, I've never felt alone. I've always felt that there's somebody there watching me or with me, laughing with me, talking trash, like just somebody there, like always with me. And just from my experiences in life, I just believe that's true for me. Probably for all of us, even though we don't recognize it.
Yeah.
Some of us don't recognize it.
Right. Wow. Incredible experience. I appreciate you being willing to share that. That's amazing.
Sure. I don't share that too often, but it's a true story. And, the other combat, we had we had a Bronze Star with V. I know you were asking about that.
Yeah.
That was oftentimes when somebody has, recognition like that, whether it's a Silver Star, the Medal of Honor, or whatever it might be, it's usually, the worst day of your life. And it just kind of means that you went through something serious and you kind of overcame it in some way. And so for me, we had a really rough deployment, that second deployment, a lot of firefights, a lot of missions, getting attacked almost every night in the very beginning. And we heard that there was a battalion of Al-Qaeda in this one location. And I kind of laughed. I was like, a battalion. I was like, come on. And this guy kept telling us there was a battalion out there. And I kept blowing him off, didn't believe him. And finally, we had this
Just one of your sources was telling you this?
Yeah, it was a guy that we were working with. And, people in town that try to help us out, they give us information and that sort of thing. And
they usually pretty spot on?
No, they're usually not spot on.
Oh, really?
They're usually,
so you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you got to be like, all right, do I trust this person or not? And, this person was very confident, consistent, passionate about this. And so eventually we finally had a day where there wasn't a whole lot going on, and I told my team, I'm like, let's go out there and check it out, you know. And they're like, well, this guy's saying there's like 400 people out there, sir. I'm like, I don't believe that, do you? They're like, no. And they're like, well, just in case, I'll bring 400 of our foreign internal defense forces, our Kurdish Peshmerga soldiers, just in case, you know what I mean? Like, if there's anything. So we got them, and we had 400 of them, and we usually go in the middle of the night when we do our missions, you know, with the advantage of night vision goggles and things like that. And so
with 400 people at a
well,
time?
we would have it, they would not.
Yeah.
And so we would just sort of direct them what to do.
Yeah.
But we went out in the middle of the day, and we went to this location we'd never been before. And as soon as we crested the hill, chaos in this village. And we're like, hey, maybe there is something. It wasn't a battalion, but there was a kind of a headquarters out there. And so the guy that we were working with was telling us the truth, that there was a number of, you know, Al-Qaeda operatives there. And so we surround this village, and we start conducting operations. And my team sergeant, my right-hand guy, his vehicle's minigun went down, you know, in the turret. It just didn't shoot anymore. And he made the decision. He's like, let's get out and let's assault this building. And he didn't consult with me, but, you know, he sort of has the autonomy to do that and make this what he believes is the right decision in the moment. Okay. And he and two of my guys, Chris and Rob, they went to go assault this building. And once they got in there, they would conduct CQB, close quarters battles, and then just sort of clear the compound. And we've trained a million times over how to do this. And they,
at that point when they go in, does the whole village know you guys are there?
They knew, you know, right when we got there, because there was chaos. Like, the enemy forces there, some of them were trying to escape.
Okay.
Some of them were already firing AK-47s at us, and it was just like, it was clear.
Is that because they see you crest the hill, or they?
We took them by surprise.
Okay.
Because they thought, you know, the American forces only attack at night, which we do.
Okay.
What are they doing here? You know, like we surprised them. And so we were in a battle. And there was somebody that, an Al-Qaeda operative, that got on the roof of this building. He was wearing all black, and he just sort of wildly, haphazardly started shooting his AK-47 at my team sergeant and my guys. And he shot Don through his legs. I actually ended up shooting him in his taint, which is a horrible place to get shot. And then he shot Rob in the head. And you know, I heard on the radio, Eagles down. And so I got in my vehicle with my medic and my interpreter, and we went all the way up to this compound, you know, in firefight and everything. And I got out, and I was angry at my team sergeant, and, you know, because he didn't tell me he was doing this, but, you know, I was probably out of line for being angry. You know, he was doing the best he could. And I saw him, and he was leaning up against the wall of this building. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? You know, and he just kind of looked at me. He didn't say anything, and you could tell he was, like, bleeding out. And my medic, Tim, we ran over there, and he was kind of finding out where he was bleeding. He was kind of stopping the blood and everything. And I didn't really have anything to do there, so I went around the corner, and I saw Rob and Chris, and Chris was on all fours, and he wasn't quite right in the head. He was sort of just crawling around, trying to, like, mentally, he wasn't quite there. And then Rob was on his back, just laying down. And I went over to Chris. I was like, you know, get it together. What's going on? And he was like, you know, Rob's been shot. And I looked at him, and he had a clean uniform, like no blood, and he was breathing. And I was like looking at him. I was like, where is he shot? He didn't see any blood on the ground. And he goes, in the head. And I looked at his helmet, and he had a tracer round from the top of his helmet that kind of went around the curvature of his Kevlar helmet. And I thought initially, I was like, he was lucky. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the bullet didn't go through it. It barely missed him. And I took his helmet off, and I could tell that the bullet did not miss him. It had not just hit his helmet, but it hit his head, and so it kind of curved through his head. And he was still alive and he was still breathing. He wasn't responsive. And I pulled the helmet off, and then there was the blood. You know what I mean? And it just started coming out. And I was honest, I was kind of shocked. I was kind of surprised, and because we train a lot on how to stop the bleeding for different injuries, but I don't recall ever learning how to stop the blood from a head,
Wow.
like that. And so I just thought, like, just grab some gauze or whatever, and then I went and got Tim, and I was like, well, Don's responsive, and he's like, Rob's really hurting. Like, Tim, get over here. Like, we need to get Rob. And Tim was like, I'm working on Don. And I was like, Rob needs your help now, And this was all during a firefight, So in my mind, it happened probably pretty slowly, but in reality, I'm sure this happened really quickly.
Wow. The guy's still up on the roof while you're...
No. We learned that my team, they were covering fire, so they were covering us, and we don't know who it was. We believe it was my warrant officer that did it, but he shot that guy right in the head, and we found his body later. So we got Don and Rob into the vehicle, into our Humvee, and we drove them a little ways away and got behind a berm for safety, and we treated them as best we could. And then we consolidated our forces and then went back in and did one final, operation to clear out everything. And we ended up killing 9 guys, and we captured 16 guys. So there's probably 40 guys there. There were a few guys that got away. And, it was a brutal operation. And we got on the radio, and the guy in black, we found him, and he hit a bullet right through his head. His head was totally canoed in. And we got on the radio, and the guys told us that Don was going to be okay. And then they said Rob had expired on the helicopter, so he died.
Dang.
So it was a rough mission for us, for sure, that particular day. And, due to our actions, a few of us received the Bronze Star with V for Valor for that mission. But again, it was like, I think I probably would look back on that differently if we all had lived, But looking back on it now, it's like, that's was a hard experience to go through. That was a hard lesson to learn. That was the worst day of my life, and for probably all of us, worst day of our lives, because when you're on a small team like that, these guys are like really your brothers, And he was a great guy, and he died when he was 29 years old.
Wow, I'm sorry. I mean, that's as real and raw as it gets, and for someone like me that's never had military necessarily people in my family, I don't hear these stories often unless I'm watching something on TV or I'm reading a book and sort of sit across the table from somebody that's led troops into combat that way and put your life on the line, and literally people leaving their life out there in battle. I appreciate all that is done to keep us safe and truly putting yourself out there for us. It's you hear about a lot of soldiers coming back and there's PTSD. I'm assuming it's these moments that would create that in them. Is that something that you've had to deal with, or
I think about this a lot, because there are a lot of guys that I know on my team and other teams that they've experienced the same things. They've gone through the exact same missions, everything. And some guys come home and they're totally fine. And some guys come home and they are not fine.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, well, what's the difference? Is it their background? Is it their religious upbringing? Is it their belief or their faith? Like, what is it exactly? And in my opinion, it comes down to that deliberate discomfort mindset, meaning the guys that didn't prepare themselves for the things that they were going to do before they went and did them were the guys that had a hard time coming to terms with it. Because if I told you to do something right now, right, and you didn't have any time to think it through or accept it or volunteer or make it your decision, if you were forced to do it, you're going to have a hard time coming to terms, coming to grips with that after the fact. If I told you you were going to do this thing months ago and you've been thinking about it and you said, you know what, when it comes to this decision, this is what I'm going to do. When it comes to that moment, you already know what you're going to do. You've already come to terms with it, with grips with it. You've already made your choice.
Okay.
And so I believe that when choice is taken away from you, that's when the PTSD occurs. You know? And that's just my personal opinion based on what I've seen and my experiences in dealing with my guys. It's like when you don't have a choice, when you feel like you don't have a choice, when you haven't prepared for that choice, when you haven't talked to the guys beforehand and learned their stories and heard about what they did and why they did it, if you don't take the time to do those things, if you don't take the time to embrace the hard proactively, then the hard, when it comes knocking on your door, you know, it's going to be almost too much for you to handle. You know, and that's what I've seen.
Wow. And is that what you're doing with Warrior Rising? Are you helping those soldiers that are coming back and dealing with these experiences in life? Is that tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you're helping those?
Well, thank you for asking about that. It's a little bit differently. So when veterans come back, I see them needing really three things. One, mental health assistance, and there are a lot of nonprofits that help with that, and they're great. Two is getting a job, you know, finding a purpose, you know, some employment, a way to make money for yourself and for your family. And third is to start a business. And that's what Warrior Rising does, is we help veterans find their purpose again through business ownership.
Wow.
And so vets that have an idea or that need an idea or that want to start a franchise or that already have a business and they want to scale, come to Warrior Rising at no cost to you. Our services are always free and they always will be free. We will help you find your purpose. You know, we'll help you achieve the American dream of being independent, having freedom, you know, financial independence, the whole thing.
Wow.
And we have a training platform that translates the military decision-making process into a business plan. So everything that you learn in the military, we kind of bring it into business terms for you. And we have a coaching call every month. You can come ask questions. We have a masterclass call every month where somebody who's been there and done that will teach you about what they did and how they did it. We have a Warrior University, which is in collaboration with several universities across the country. We're really excited because hopefully soon we'll be partnered with Rice University and Harvard University. We've got a few other universities that we're working with. But that's an 8-week live virtual course that you go through, and then at the conclusion of that, we give the veterans an opportunity. We'll select about 12 of them every quarter to attend a business shower. So like a bridal shower or a baby shower, we give these vets everything they could need, everything they could possibly need for success in business. So we shower them with a grant that they do not have to repay, with introductions to potential clients, to potential investors, to, you know, some of them might need marketing assistance or marketing videos or a laptop, a website, custom business suit, whatever it is that they need that makes sense. We'll give it to them if we can.
Wow.
You know, and you know, we've been doing this for 10 years. It's our 10-year anniversary this year.
Congrats, man. That's amazing.
We've helped, thank you. We've helped 42,000 veterans start businesses.
No way. 42,000.
Yeah. And so it's been awesome. It's service.
How does that feel?
Well, not all of them are successful.
Yeah, but still.
Right? You know, but it feels good to, number one, help them help themselves. And so I didn't start this business for them. I was just a tool for them. We were just a tool for them to use to become successful. And when the guys come back, and it just means a lot when they send you a text message and they shake your hand, or they're just, you know, effusive in their praise. It just feels good, because that's what true charity is. It's not about giving somebody a fish. It's about teaching them how to fish. And that's what we do. We teach them how to start their own businesses, and a lot of them come back and they're our biggest donors, some of them, when they're successful.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. How is all this funded? I know that you have, is that big event you hold every year, is that one of your big fundraising efforts?
Yeah. So we there's two ways to start a nonprofit. One is you have a lot of money, or somebody with a lot of money says, I really want to do this cause or support this cause. Okay, that's the easiest way.
Private charity that way, right?
Yeah, yeah. Somebody who's, usually an older gentleman that says, I want to give back. You how it works is you spend your whole life accumulating wealth, and then at some point you end up giving all that wealth away. And so you can find somebody who wants to do that, and that's difficult. And the second way is just to grind and just, get donations and $25 here, $100 there.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning we had to grind really hard, and we didn't get paid for a number of years, and we, everything we raised went back to the veteran. And then there came a kind of a tipping point where we made enough money to hire some folks. And that's where we really scaled the organization, because we didn't have to rely on volunteers, because, I couldn't hold them accountable for anything. They didn't show up. What am I going to do? Fire them? They're a volunteer. They didn't feel like working that day, or they didn't feel like doing the assignment that I told them to do. They're a volunteer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once we started hiring real people and giving them a salary and holding them accountable for things, we started to become a more professional organization. And we're doing great. We're starting an endowment this year. And how we fundraise is mainly through events. We're really good at events at Warrior Rising.
Yeah, tell us about that, because I was blown away by the event that you did and all the prizes that were given. The big ticket items that you're giving away.
Yeah, heck yeah. So the first event we do every year is usually in Iowa, and we do like a hunt and pheasant hunt, and we do a range, and it's a much more kind of conservative, experience for the veterans there. The second location, it varies. We've done it in Las Vegas before, in Philadelphia, and Washington D.C., and New York, and all sorts of different places. The third quarter event every year is in Washington D.C., and that is for women veterans only, and that's much more of a kind of a liberal, experience. No guns, nothing like that. And then our last event of the year is in Salt Lake City, and that's our biggest event of the year, because that's where we're headquartered. And the vets come in. We do a practice pitch competition, so anybody that wants to join can watch the vets in an informal environment pitch their business ideas, and give them feedback. We'll usually do like a big dinner that night, and the next day we'll have the actual pitch competition. It's usually at a bank, or a Wells Fargo, or Chase, or Goldman Sachs, something like that. And we have judges who...
How many vets are pitching their businesses?
We've had as many as 20, and that was way too many. We kind of settled on 12, but the veterans have to earn the opportunity to come. So some locations we only will bring 6.
Okay.
It sort of depends, but we never want to bring more than 12, because we want it to be a really premium experience for them.
Cool.
And they pitch their ideas. The judges will listen. They'll have scorecards, and they'll determine 3 finalists. And then we'll go do something really fun that night. Like last year, we had a fight night in Salt Lake City, so we had boxing, and the next day we were at the Eccles Theater, so 2,500 people. And everybody comes in. They get a chance to meet the veterans. We bring the vets on stage. We introduce them one at a time, and then we announce the 3 finalists, and nobody knows who they are. And then the 3 finalists, right then and there, pitch the audience.
Wow. 2,500 people.
2,500 people, right? So these guys have probably never been before, like 15, 20, 30 people in their lives. It's 2,500 people.
Wow.
And so it's interesting to see how they react, And it's very human to see, and it's endearing to see, like how they responded. And they pitch. We give them about 8 minutes or so, and they've rehearsed this over and over and over again. And then once the third and final competitor pitches, then the audience votes on their cell phones who they think a champion should be. And then we'll bring out our entertainment. Last year it was Nate Bargatze, and he crushed it. He did like an hour of comedy for us, and He was a great entertainer, great
I
guy.
think you had offered us some tickets. I was out of town, but I think our VP of marketing was down
Yeah,
at
he
that.
did.
And
He did come.
So,
He did come. And Luke and Joe and all those guys
yeah.
were front row
Yeah.
and everything. And then after Bargatze did his comedy, we brought the vets back out, the 3 finalists, and then we announced the champion. And the champion last year, Gabe and Lindsay Crispin, their company is called My Home. It's since been rebranded to Opley. We got them $150,000
Wow.
for the grand prize pot. And then the second and third place winners both got $50,000 each.
Wow.
And then everybody else got, I want to say we gave everybody else like $9,000 each.
Jeez.
So that
That's
was
awesome.
a good, good job and all that. But then also other things we got them, Sometimes it isn't just about the money. It's about a connection or a potential client or an investor or what have you. And then,
yeah, because I assume the audience sitting there is a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners. They're probably sponsoring certain packages that they're giving away from their businesses, and so they probably hear these business ideas.
That's
and
right.
They want to support, right?
That
probably get a lot of support.
Here in Utah, right?
It's huge.
A lot of those VC firms, a lot of people that think they're in a VC firm,
Yeah.
they were out there and they got the chance to meet the vets after the, hey, I loved your pitch. Let's talk. Here's my card, sort of thing. And that's really where the magic happens.
That's cool.
So it's a blast. And you get to see these vets and you get to follow them. Because a lot of times it's like give to this nebulous group of faceless people. And it's hard for people to give to that. You're like, who am I actually giving to? And as you know, there are a lot of charities that are nefarious and they're taking the money and they're not saying, they're saying they're doing something with it, they're not. Or they have founders that are taking advantage of women and different things, and it's hard to know who to trust. But all of our finances, our 990s, are posted publicly, and 82% of every dollar that we raise goes back to the veteran.
That's awesome.
And so we're really proud about that. We're 4 stars on, which is the highest stars you can get on Charity Navigator and Guide Star. So we're completely transparent with everything that we do. And you get to meet the vets. Like, who am I supporting? Where's this money going? Well, it's going to those 12 guys.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
And if you want to do more, or you want to give them some money, and then you want to invest in them, and you want to get equity in them, go for it.
Yeah.
We don't take any equity. Go do that.
That's cool.
So it's a lot of fun.
Man, what a platform to give these deserving individuals who have done so much, right? For all of us to have that platform to network and to receive and to pitch and be celebrated. Man, it's incredible. I can't wait to go to it.
Nice.
Do you have time for a couple more questions?
I do.
All right. There was an event the first time I saw you. I met you briefly. You probably don't remember meeting me, but you were it was kind of a VIP dinner the night before. We call it the Connect and Conquer event. And you shared something there and it was a story, I think, about one of your friends. And I can't remember if there was a divorce or something. And he had been so caught up in what he was wanting to do and what he wanted in life. And then there was a question that kind of spurred from that. I think you went home and asked your wife or something. Do you know the story?
I know the story. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that? Because it had an impact on me. And I just remember thinking, I'm trying to do so much in life. And I do have this, I feel like it's for my wife and for my children. But I'm kind of doing what I want to do to then hopefully bless them. So I went home and asked the same question, So do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no problem. So Cameron is his name,
Okay.
right? And he's such a great guy, just a great guy, LDS faith guy. He got married when he was about 30. Loved his wife. He was just absolutely infatuated with her. He's got 4 kids, all pretty young kids. And, my fiance at the time, we would go out to lunch or whatever, and we would say, man, these guys are, the example, right? Phenomenal people. And then I was getting ready to actually tie the knot. And so I said, hey, Cameron, let's go grab some lunch. And we did. And I was like, hey, you got any advice for me? I'm getting married, and how do I be like you? Sort of thing. And he goes, marriage is easy, man. Here's all you need to know.
It's kind of like that young man leaving on his mission.
Exactly.
Life is easy.
Exactly. And he gave me some advice, and I thought it was pretty good advice, and I took it to heart and I implemented it. And then just before COVID, a few years after I got married, we went out to lunch again. It wasn't the only time we went out to lunch, but this particular time, right. And he showed up. He was just looking awful, just disheveled and just like dog crap. You know what I mean? And I laughed at him. I was like, I said something to him, and he shrugged it off. And I was like, "Is everything okay?" And he goes, "Well, I can confidently tell you that it's not okay." I'm like, "Well, what's up? Tell me what's going on." And he goes, "Jason, I came home from work on Wednesday, and as usual, when I walked into my house, and my wife was in the kitchen, my kids are in the living room, watching TV or whatever." And he's like, "I just casually asked my wife, what's for dinner?" And she looks over at him and kind of matter-of-factly, she said, "Cameron, it's over. I'm leaving you. I want a divorce." And he was just so shocked because they had never really had those conversations before, and he was just and didn't know what to say. He was just standing there like a statue. And she started to walk away, and he noticed that she had like luggage packed by the garage door. And she picked up her bags, and she started walking into the garage, and she put her bags in, and she got in her truck, and Cameron finally got his senses together, and he went out there, and as the garage door was opening up, he stood in front of the truck, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, we've been married for 18 years, we've got 4 kids, we've got a wonderful life. Like, what are you doing? Like, how can you lay this on me? Like, are you crazy?" Like, he was just kind of going off, and she goes, "Cameron, I've been cheating on you for the last year and a half. It's over." And that hit him like, a ton of bricks, like a dagger in the heart, but again, he didn't know what to say. And so he just kind of stood there, and she kind of just was in her truck, and she's not going to kill him and run him over, but like, it's a standoff. Like, what are you going to do? And finally she says, "Okay, Cameron, I'll get out, and we can talk about this, and we can even go to counseling and work on our marriage." And he's like, "Finally, just tell me what I need to do. Like, I'll do anything." He's like begging at this point, right? And she said, "You just have to tell me one thing." And he goes, "What?" And she said, "If you can tell me what my dream is, what I've always wanted to do with my life, I'll get out of the car." And he looked at her. He just shrugged his shoulders, and he got out of the way. And she drove off. And shortly thereafter, they got divorced. And Cameron has been absolutely devastated. Even today, I know he's devastated by it. He's the love of his life, And as he was telling me the story at lunch, pretty intense, heavy story, he says, "Jason, you remember when I told you marriage was easy?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, marriage was easy for me, but it wasn't easy for her." He spent all of his time focusing on himself and on his business and what he thought would make his wife happy, rather than asking her what would actually make her happy. And I thought that was just a powerful lesson. And so I went home, and the first thing I did was I immediately asked my wife what her vision, what her dream is for herself. And what I found was interesting. She said, "Well, thank you for asking me that. That's a great question. I don't know." And I thought to myself, how can you not know? Like, if you don't know what you want to accomplish in life, if your vision, your dream, like, you're just a ship with no destination. It doesn't matter where you're going if you don't have a destination. You can go right or left, or it doesn't matter. And then I started to, over time, try to help her find her, what her vision and dream is. And she resisted as she's never resisted before. She didn't want me to help. She didn't need any help. And I realized this isn't something I can help her do or help anyone else do. This is something they have to come to terms with on their own. They have to figure this out on their own. And I think that's part of why we're here in life, is to figure out what that is, what that vision is, what that dream is. you know, and I was just trying to be helpful at times. Like, well, you love interior decorating. What if we did this? You love working in the garden. What if we did this? And it was just a straight stiff arm. You know what I mean? Like, stop talking. And I realized I should stop talking. But that's what it comes down to is um, understanding that about ourselves, but then also understanding that about the people that are close to us, our significant others, our family members, and also our employees.
Mm.
If you can help them, uh, if you can understand what they want to accomplish and help them do that, then they will help you accomplish whatever you want.
Mm.
A lot of founders and CEOs will ask me, Jason, how do I get my employees to buy into this business with the same passion that I have? Well, you got to buy into them first.
Mm.
They're like, well, you want to do this, Mike? Okay, listen, I'll help you get there. You help me get to where I need to go, and then I'll help you.
Yeah.
And then they're all in.
That's really cool. That's so powerful. Somebody, and you've probably heard this, and I'm going to misquote this, but I think it's nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And so buying in to their dream, to their vision, whether it's here at MTN Ops and our team or my wife at home, my children at home, I remember hearing that and thinking that was the message I needed to hear at the time. And I honestly needed to hear it again today. And as I think about those relationships that matter most to me in my life, I need to be investing more and more into their dreams, their aspirations. And maybe they don't know. Maybe there's like some homework and some discovery that needs to take place, and hopefully I can be an instrument in helping them, find that. And maybe some of that evolves over time. And for this period of my life, or maybe my son wants to do this, and then he develops and grows, and now it's like now it's this, and it's to be a part of that journey is an incredible opportunity that I want to make sure I'm taking full advantage of. So.
Just be sure to not judge when you do it, because a lot of times what I found is when people share these dreams and these visions, they're a little bit shy, nervous, they're embarrassed by it sometimes. Hey, I've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar. Do you think that's weird? I've always wanted to go to Africa to do this. Is that okay? Let them expose their hearts to you and don't judge them for it.
I love that. That's really good counsel. Great for our listeners. Great for me as a listener on this as well. A couple more questions. One's going to kind of come back to this, but living in deliberate discomfort right now in your life, what does that look like for you? What are you doing to put yourself in situations that allow you growth through discomfort?
Well, I've got a list I can show you on my phone that's like 4 pages
Pain, the pain list, the pain cave.
Yeah, it's so much discomfort, but it excites me, and I just wish I had the time in the day to do all of it, I try to organize it in mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, and professional kind of domains. Mental, what am I doing? I'm getting my doctorate right now.
Wow.
I'm trying to read certain books, and I'm writing my second book,
cool.
Which is the sequel to Deliberate Discomfort, which I love writing. I love being creative. And at the end of the day, when my kids are asleep or going to sleep, like I just go downstairs and write for 2 hours, and it's just awesome.
That's awesome.
Physical, I go to the gym every single day except for Sunday. And I've got a buddy who's an absolute just demon in the weight room. This kind of put me on a program. It's really seen some tremendous gains for me. Strength wise, I need to do a lot better job with the nutrition. It's just it's hard when you're traveling so much. It's just hard when you travel. I just got to do a better job of that. Spiritual stuff, I've lately gotten a lot of spiritual nourishment just watching the series The Chosen.
Oh yeah,
I've been really enjoying that, and showing my kids, reading Bible stories to my kids at night.
Yeah.
And have you heard about this story? No, they never even heard of it. I'm like, that's cool.
That's awesome.
And that's a lot of fun to do that. Social, I'm very introverted, so anytime I'm doing anything extroverted, it's discomfort for me.
I would not. That surprised me hearing that from you right now.
Yeah, I would much rather. My wife was like, where would you like to be? I'd drive from Salt Lake to Las Vegas. I'd take a hard right into the desert for 200 miles. I'd build a compound out there, and I'd be happy
Uh,
living out there by myself with my wife and family for the rest of my life.
I could imagine that, and I would love that as well. But you're so well networked and connected, and you're the type that's reaching out and, hey, let's
Yeah,
connect and let's talk, and that's so. That is that difficult for
that's
you?
deliberate discomfort in action.
That there it is. Like I yeah, hearing that from you, I'm like, yeah, you're living true to your
Yeah,
to what you're preaching for
I
sure.
would rather not do any of that. It's hard for me. It's uncomfortable, but I do it so I can be better at it.
Wow.
And so I'm happy that you're saying, "Oh, it surprised me.
Yeah.
I imagine you're an extrovert." Well, it's working then,
It's awesome.
But I try to keep in touch with. There's so many people I want to keep in touch with
Yeah.
that I don't do a good job
Yeah.
of, but I try, and I do reach out, and I do care. Emotionally, for me, it isn't about controlling my emotions. It's about feeling the emotions. Like you said earlier, you're a guy that emotions come easy for.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite, and so I try to put myself in positions where I can feel
Hmm.
things, and identifying things that make me feel something, and then watching those things or reading about those things or reliving those things in a positive way, not in a
Right.
negative way, but just something.
Right.
And then professionally, trying to build the businesses or look for opportunities for other businesses, because my whole job is, on a daily basis, helping other businesses succeed.
Hmm.
Not 42,000 at once, but
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of businesses that I'm advising on and mentoring and so forth.
It's amazing. That's really cool.
But it's fun. It's what I chose to do. It's my decision, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of really good things. I was sitting right here across the desk from a friend yesterday, a good mentor of mine, and I thanked him at the end of our conversation. Said, I just know how busy you are, so thanks for giving me some of your time and attention. I say the same to you. You're so busy doing so many good things. Thanks for giving me some time and attention. And his response to me was, he served a mission in Japan, and he said the symbol for busy in Japan means without heart.
Oh,
And so he's like, yes, I've got a lot to do, but if I'm finding myself too busy in life, then I'm without heart. Like this is important. Like having these conversations is important, giving people time, even though we're all busy. But he's like, I don't want to lose heart.
man,
And
that's great. I love that.
really, really cool. And he learned that from his mission, but from a leader in his mission who was serving in a capacity that was very busy, but he always made time for things and people that mattered most. And I just think I don't want to ever be too busy that I lose my heart with life and with relationships and that. So
Well
I
said.
see you living in that same way, with heart and fully involved, and where your feet are and present, and that's a gift that I've been working on for a long time, and I'm just not there yet, but I really want to be present and in the moment as much as possible. And I've got kids that are a little older than yours right now, and I see time passing by faster in their lives, watching their lives, than I do anywhere else. And I see this just, I've got a 21-year-old now, and
It's scary.
an 18-year-old, and a son that just turned 16, and 12, and it's like, wow, where did this all go?
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have them, watching them progress, like I wouldn't be feeling those things. But I want to be okay with that as well. I want to be like in the moment, experiencing this journey with them. And so I appreciate you bringing that to the conversation.
It's my honor. And I'll tell you this. I tell my team all the time, don't be busy, be productive.
Yeah,
And being here with you today was being productive.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's right. I love that. Absolutely incredible. This is productive for me as well. It's that's why I was so excited to start this podcast, to bring people on like you that would have a story to tell, that would help people understand that yeah, there's ways for growth, there's ways for conquering, there's mountains we're all going to face. Whether you're facing them now, you face them in the past, or they're coming in the future, it's going to happen. So get into the mindset of deliberate discomfort so that you can be ready for that, right? And how much has your past influenced your ability to continue to face the future? How, looking back on everything you've experienced, is that like, are those the building blocks that help you conquer the next mountain? Or
Absolutely. I believe past achievement is a great predictor of future success. And so I look at the future, and I look at it with extreme confidence, because I think to myself, well, that's what you need to accomplish, Jason. Look at what you've done in the past. Like, you went in West Point, you went to combat, you did all these things that were very hard for you. So how hard could this possibly be?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's sort of like speaking in front of a group. It's like, hey, I've spoken in front of 250,000 people before.
Wow.
So 1,000 people, is that really gonna? I've already sort of leveled up in that way. You know what I mean? Like, you as an entrepreneur, you're like, I've already made X amount of dollars here. So if I were to start over again and make a couple million, would that be? No, it'd be easy for me. You know what I mean? I know how to do it. But that's why you always got to push yourself, and it's never ending. Like, there's not a ceiling for that. You can always push yourself to do something. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. Final question, and I asked this question of all my guests. There's a book, I don't know if you've read Clayton Christensen's How Will You Measure Your Life?
I have not.
Harvard professor, LDS faith. Interesting book. We've read it as part of our book club here a couple times, actually. And the title of that book is my question: how will you measure your life when all is said and done? We just spoke about Cam and his relationships, and how he was so focused on himself, he didn't take time to ask about. And I'm not leading you to your answer. I'm just saying that's kind of sparked that in me as well, just the relationships and the investments in those. But how do you foresee, kind of, when all is said and done, and as a conqueror in life, how you measure that?
I haven't read the book. I'm looking forward to reading it. I know all about Clayton Christensen and everything. I would answer like this. I asked my boss, my company commander, once, I said, how will I know that I'm a good commander? And he said, well, Jason, that's not up to you. That's up to me. I will tell you if you're a good commander. He said, how do you know you're a good father? It's not up to you. It's up to your kids. They will tell you if you're a good father. How will you know you're a good husband? It's not up to you. You have no say in the matter. It's up to your wife. She will tell you if you're a good husband. How will you know you're a good businessman? It's not up to you. It's up to your clients. It's up to your investors. They're going to tell you if you're good or not. So for me to measure my life, it would be up to my God to tell me, my Father in heaven to tell me, whether what I did or did not do measured up to his expectations.
It's powerful. That's awesome. That's a great perspective to have, an eternal perspective, and yeah, when all is said and done, it's that connection with him is what will matter most, and his thoughts. I had somebody else answer in a very similar way, and if they said, if I can hear "well done," from him who will tell me if I've done a good job, then I'll know. But well, Jason, this has been incredible. I appreciate your time, man.
It kind of flew by. So
it flies by, and everyone check out his book, Deliberate Discomfort, on Audible, read by him, or wherever books are sold, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Warrior Rising.
Yeah.
Is
warriorrising.org.
.org. Okay. And then where else? On social media, LinkedIn, is it?
Yeah, I'm not really on any social. Well, I'm on social media, but where I reside is on LinkedIn. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I usually post every day in January to April, and then I post sporadically throughout the year. But that's, if you want to follow me, that's where to go.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. This has been a blessing for me, and I know for all the listeners. If you haven't followed or subscribed yet, please do leave a comment in this, and maybe when we launch this podcast, could we give away a few copies of your book to some of the listeners?
Yeah, just let me know. I'll bring up whatever you want to.
All right, that's awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep.